4 o'clock in the afternoon, we get right down to business with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air right now, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks finishing lower today in another seesaw session as the possibility of higher for longer interest rates weighed on the markets. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ have racked up their longest streak of losses in more than 3 months. The Dow closed down by just about 46 points, and it's been down, mostly down over the past week or so. The NASDAQ finishing down by 182 points, and the S&P 500 did pull back today by 29 points. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates out there, which have hit a new high for the year, slipping to 4.58%. Chip stocks selling off today. The tech sector back in the spotlight. Advanced Micro shares off 5% toward the end of the session. Abbott Labs shares down despite its first quarter results beating analyst estimates. Looks like we're off to a rocky start with the earnings season. And another concern, J.B. Hunt Transport Services. Big miss there in its quarterly earnings report. That's the trucking giant. Shares of J.P. Hunt were tumbling more than 8%. Abbott shares down nearly 3%. From Wall Street to Main Street this afternoon, we'll get an update on homelessness in Los Angeles. I'll be joined live later this hour by Richard NEWCOMB, Vice President of Philanthropy and Social Enterprise for the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, ahead of the Union Rescue Mission's biggest fundraiser of the year on CBS 2 this weekend, the big television special, Angels of Hope. And watching out for you, the taxpayer, Susan SHELLEY, columnist for the Southern California News Group and host of the Howard Jarvis radio show, heard Friday nights on your favorite station, 790 KBC, will be joining me live later this hour. Is a League of California Cities now using taxpayer money to advocate against their voters' interest? We'll get an answer on that question from Susan SHELLEY coming up live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, what's happening around the world with Israel, Hamas, Iran, Ukraine, Russia, and the whole works. Joining us live now, the one and only Ben Stein for our occasional Frank and Stein conversation. Ben Stein, of course, a world-renowned financial and political commentator, author, attorney, economist, and most famous, perhaps, for his appearance on the big screen in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and one of the most famous scenes in American cinema when he played basically himself, the economics professor, giving that trade lecture in that big movie. Ben Stein is on the line. Thank you very much for joining us here live this afternoon, Ben.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
It's been a while since we've chatted behind live microphones following Iran's attack on Israel, and of course, it's been a nervous time in the global markets. So we did see oil pull back now from its recent high of the year. But first of all, give us your reaction to what's happened recently.
Well, I think the Iran attack on Israel began on the October 6th war crime and crime against humanity, October 6th or 7th, in which 1,200, 1,400, I'm not sure how many men and women were murdered, raped to death, tortured to death in a totally unprovoked, 100% unprovoked attack on Israeli border settlements and on, of all things, an Israeli peace festival dance in the desert near the border with Gaza, or maybe on the border with Gaza. And this is one of the worst war crimes since the end of World War II. And unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, Mr. Biden is not really stepping up to the plate and being the backbone of Israel as he promised he would be. But if I may say so, that's not unusual for Mr. Biden. And now Israel has struck back after this astounding attack. Now Mr. Biden is telling Israel to don't do anything else. Don't defend yourself. Don't retaliate. All things that, of course, every normal nation does. And, of course, Israel, which is Jews, the Jewish state is expected to be held to a higher standard. And it's frankly, it's disgusting. It's just disgusting that Israel, which is the victim, is held to a higher standard than the attackers and the killers. So that's what's happening. It's, as my wife, who you have had the pleasure of meeting, I believe, says, it's genetic. This hatred of Jews is so persistent and awful. It's genetic. It's just horrible. And I hope Israel strikes back, but of course it's up to them. They know their situation better than I do.
On the Air Live with the one and only Ben Stein. You raised that important point, Ben Stein. Right after the October 7th attack last year, the Wall Street Journal on the front page laid out Iran's involvement in that attack. And since then, the administration seems to be very cautious with Iran, to put it politely. President Biden urging Israel to use caution in any response to Iran's unprecedented attack of missiles and drones against Israel, and pressing allies for a united diplomatic front in a bid to stop the hostilities from spiraling out of control. We're awaiting some sort of a response from Israel at this point. Do you think they might go after Iran's nuclear capabilities, given what's happened?
I think if they would have done it already if they could have. Those are buried very deep. The Arab terrorists are experts in digging tunnels and hiding things. This is one of the many gifts they've gotten from Russia. The Russians are the world's experts in building defensive underground capacities. They did it against the Nazis. They are great experts in it, and so I don't know that Israel could. I don't think they could go after the Iranian nuclear facilities unless they use the atom bomb, and I don't think they want to use the atom bomb. I don't think we want them to use the atom bomb. So I just don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to do something. I mean, Israel does not like being pushed around. Nobody likes being pushed around. The Jews, who have suffered the most of any people in the world on a proportionate basis, I really don't like being pushed around, and they're not going to be pushed around. I don't. I can't imagine them not retaliating in some way. It might not be with bombing. It might be with assassination of high-ranking Iranian terrorists. I don't know, but they're not going to let this pass unnoticed.
On the Air Live with Ben Stein, and since we last spoke, President Trump now on trial in New York on this so-called hush money case. You have White House experience as well. Ben Stein, give us your reaction on how this is playing out this week.
Well, sir, my real experience that has some bearing on this is in law school. I had the incredible pleasure and gift from God of going to Yale Law School, class of 1970, and we were studying criminal law and how the prosecution could do almost any darn thing they wanted. And I remember I raised my hand and said, well, Professor, where's the limit on that? Where in the Constitution is the limit on prosecutorial misconduct? And he said, there isn't any. That's a real problem. Unless you get a court that's going to overturn the prosecutor's behavior, there's no limit on what they can do. Any dinky prosecutor can pick out any dinky bunch of jurors walking down the street and put them into a grand jury and indict anyone. In fact, there's a famous saying in criminal law, you can indict a ham sandwich. And I'm afraid that's what's happened. It's disgraceful, and it's a shocking attack on the Constitution, because what this means is, as I say, any political party that has a lot of prosecutors and a lot of people in the jury pool can indict anyone who wants to run for president and very, very much hinder his or her campaign. And that's exactly what's happening. The Democrats, I think, realized they had a very dangerous opponent to them, very dangerous to them, in Donald Trump, and they figured they'd try to strip him of his money, which the cases they're bringing against him about money are so ridiculous, it's almost comical, and then just wear him down and try to put him in prison by the time the campaign is winding down. So it's just it's an astonishing attack on the Constitution by people who do not understand what law means.
On the Air Live with Ben Stein. Ben Stein, given your vast experience in the political world as well as the financial world and legal world, as you noted, what's your prediction on how this case is going to play out and its potential impact on the November election here?
I think he'll be convicted by a jury pool of 12 men and women in Manhattan, transsexuals, I don't know what. And and I think Mr. Trump would have a very hard time finding a jury pool that would be fair, and I suspect they will come in with a verdict against him for doing something that apparently never really even happened, namely the bribing of Stormy Daniels. I'm sure that's not her real name, but anyway, whatever her real name is. And then I hope and believe an appeals court will overturn it, but not in New York. I think there's going to have to be a federal appeals court in Idaho or someplace where people might have a more balanced and truthful view of what's going on. But if they do get away, if the Democrats do get away with this, it's pretty much the end of Article 1 of the Constitution. That's a very, very serious problem. That means basically the end of America as we know it.
Turning now to one of your other favorite subjects, the economy. We've been getting hotter than expected inflation readings lately, and now the concern is we might even see an increase in interest rates this year, as some of the folks have indicated, including former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers, for example, and others. What do you see happening with this economy now and inflation?
Well, I don't know what the hell to think of it. I had the incredible honor of, since my father, as you know, was an extremely famous economist, I grew up knowing people the likes of Milton Friedman, the first American winner of a Nobel Prize in economics, considered, I think, a great genius by everyone, whether you're a conservative or a liberal. And when we talked about interest rates, he would say there's nothing more close to impossible than predicting interest rates. And I think that's true. But my father also used to say, if something cannot go on forever, it will stop. And so I think the rise in interest rates will eventually stop, but I don't know when. Once inflation has gotten roaring, it's really hard to make it stop. And I don't know how we do it. Some people say, get us back on the gold standard, and maybe they're right. They may well be right. I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago, but they may well be right. And it's just a really terrifying situation because, as I said, inflation, once rolling, is really, really, really hard to stop.
And given what's happening around the world, upward pressure continues on inflation. Anyone who goes to your favorite gas station, the gas station of the Stars there in Beverly Hills, see eye-popping prices again, about 40 cents a gallon higher than where they were just a month ago. So we're watching that. And you mentioned gold. Gold hitting record highs as well, just at a time we were told inflation was supposedly easing. Suddenly gold's above $2,400 an ounce here. Have you warmed up to gold these days?
I have. I have to say I never thought I would. And again, to go back to a man who was a great deal smarter than I am, Milton Friedman, he used to laugh at the idea of how high gold was. And but gold has historically, for millennia, been a stock of value that people respected. And it may be that it's time for us to go back on a stricter gold standard. I'm not saying it is. I'd say I think it's worth considering. It's not the joke that I used to think it was. It has some real meaning, and it's sad we've come to this place. I blame Dr. Fauci for it. Dr. Fauci testified and scared us all to death that we were going to have another Great Depression because of the pandemic, and he turned out to be completely wrong. And but to fight it off that, they were just creating money like crazy down there on Constitution Avenue, and now we are paying the price.
On there live with Ben Stein. Given your vast experience, we're going to draw on some more of your experience here now. You've written numerous books, and you've bestowed some of them on me over the years. Appreciate that. We've talked during the financial crisis and over many crises over the years, including the pandemic you just mentioned, and the pandemic recession, the Great Recession, and the list goes on. From an investment standpoint, what lessons would you like to share with this audience about weathering these crises and holding steady at the wheel?
I always love residential real estate in Southern California. It's an incredibly great investment. It has astounding tax advantages that most people don't even consider. for example, the enjoyment that we get out of enjoying our homes is not taxable. It's like owning a bond that throws off a coupon, and we enjoy the coupon. But the coupon in this case is just pure enjoyment, and it's not taxable. And then there are many other tax advantages, but home in Southern California has historically been a great investment. Yes, there are periods, even periods of years, where it pulls back, but over long periods of time, get a house. You really can't go too far wrong if you just get a house.
Sounds like you might be on the way to give a guest lecture again. I'm going to be actually guest lecturing in a class at UCLA this evening, but you do the great job, of course, giving various economics lectures, and certainly the famous one there in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And of course, people want to make sure that it's you on the line here, Ben Stein. Can you give us a little bit of the lecture, and could you take the roll again, please?
Well, I'll just take the roll again. Adamley, Adamowski, Bueller.
Yep, it's
Bueller. You. It's me. God bless you.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Ben Stein, thanks for coming to the line for our Frank and Stein conversation here. And thanks for not doing the trade lecture, because that put the class to sleep. We don't want to put the audience to sleep this afternoon either. So, Ben Stein, bless you, sir. Thank you very much for coming to the line.
God bless
and
you,
let's go out to the freeways now, 790 KABC. Friends, if you're hurt in an accident, you need an experienced advocate, and Clark Fielding and his team of sharks at Fielding Law are on standby, ready to dive into your case. My friend Clark, the Shark, is fearless for justice and your go-to attorney when injured in an accident that wasn't your fault. Whether it's a car accident, slip, trip, fall, or any kind of personal injury, Fielding Law is here to make sure you get the care, attention, and compensation you deserve. Fielding Law can assess the circumstances of the case, negotiate tenaciously with the insurance companies, and, if necessary, file a lawsuit and litigate to seek fair compensation on behalf of you, the injured party. An injury is a major disruption in your life. Medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, property damage, and other losses incurred as a result of that injury are all part of the damages. Don't try to handle the process alone. You need an expert in the process, and the team at Fielding Law are the ones to trust. Put Clark Fielding's number in your phone right now under the word accident. That number is 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK. Or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. 790 KBC welcomes the band War coming to the LA County Fair May 3rd. It's that time of the year for corn dogs and cotton candy, believe it or not. Don't miss the country's largest county fair. This year's theme, Stars, Stripes, and Fun. Tickets on sale now at lacountyfair.com. Right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to that show. Call right now. Caller 9 wins, 1-888-795-2222. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Stocks moving lower today on concerns about those higher for longer interest rates. The Dow down 46 points at the closing bell today at 37,753, and what turned out to be another seesaw trading day. The S&P 500 down about 30 at 5,022, and the Nasdaq plunging 182 points at 15,683. The yield in the 10-year note now 4.59%, coming off its high point of the year, impacting those fixed-rate mortgage rates out there, which have also hit a new high for the year this week. The price of gold pulling back from its recent high above $2,400, right now down about $7 at $2,381.60 an ounce. Crude oil futures also easing a bit for the time being. Oil down to $82.69 a barrel. Checking the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin up about 400 at 61,390. Ethereum up 14 at 2,987. And Doge has moved lower to 15 cents. Looks like Alaska Airlines has briefly grounded all flights due to a technical issue. We're keeping an eye on this situation here now. The latest, according to Alaska Airlines, they briefly grounded all flights due to a technical issue. The airline said in a statement it requested a ground stop for all Alaska Air as well as Horizon Air flights out of an abundance of caution after it experienced an issue while performing an upgrade to the system that calculates weight and balance on the planes. And now the latest news for you right here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Is the League of California Cities now using taxpayer money to advocate against their voters' interest? Let's put that question now to taxpayer advocate. That includes you and me. Susan Shelley, columnist for the Southern California News Group and host of the Howard Jarvis radio show, heard Friday nights on your favorite station, 790 KABC. Susan Shelley, thanks for coming to the line this afternoon. Tell us about the latest news regarding the League of Cities using taxpayer money and looks like advocating against their voters' interests. Tell us what we need to know about that.
Well, the League of California Cities is an association that lobbies for the interests of cities, which would usually be okay. But in this particular case, they are lobbying against a qualified initiative that protects taxpayers. And this is an organization that is supported by payments from its member cities, which means it's supported by public funds. Now, it has to be very careful. It can't use public funds for campaigning. But it is using its resources to go around the state barnstorming to all these different city councils and lobbying all of these city managers and all of these city council members to oppose the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act, which is a very important restoration of Proposition 13 protections that the courts have eroded, that the legislature has eroded, that the administrative state has eroded. It puts them back, and it creates transparency and accountability and taxpayer protection. It restores the two-thirds vote. It closes a loophole that was opened by the California Supreme Court. Why is the League of Cities opposing taxpayers with the money that taxpayers are paying the cities to join that organization? It's just wrong.
Another good question. On your live with Susan Shelley. Thanks for putting this on our radar screen. Tell us what we need to know about this Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. And they're going to be on the November ballot, right?
It will be on the November ballot, but I have to tell you that these government agencies, these cities, the governor himself and the legislature are so frightened of this because taxpayer protection and government accountability, there you go. Those are the two reasons that they want to oppose this. The governor and the legislature are suing to have it taken off the ballot before voters have a chance to pass it. All these defenders of democracy, as soon as voters have a chance to protect the taxpayer, they're suing to have this measure taken off the ballot. I hope they don't prevail. This is in the California Supreme Court right now. But if it is on the ballot in November, then this is what it'll do. It restores the two-thirds vote, even if these tax increases are put on the ballot by a so-called citizens' initiative. They still need a two-thirds vote, as the Constitution says. It restores that. It creates, for the first time, voter approval of state taxes. So something like the gas tax increase would have to go on the ballot. After it's voted on in Sacramento, it goes on the ballot for voter approval. That's a big taxpayer protection. It creates accountability for fees. So sometimes you see the legislature pass some sort of mandate, they hand it off to an agency, the agency creates a fee, and nobody's accountable. They each blame each other. Well, this would be ended because fees would have to be approved by somebody who was on the ballot. A city council, a board of supervisors, the state legislature, all of these agency fees and charges would have to be accounted for by people who are elected. So all of these things, ballot transparency, so that when something is a tax increase, it has to say on the ballot, this is a tax increase. What a concept. So the idea of suing to have this taken off the ballot before people can vote on it is just really appalling.
And you said it's before the state Supreme Court. When do we expect a ruling on that?
Well, we're waiting for oral arguments to be scheduled. The Secretary of State has said that she needs an answer by June 27th because of the deadline for printing all the materials for the ballot. So that's when we expect an answer.
Mm-hmm. All right, another case you're following, of course, is this case involving ULA, the so-called mansion tax, which has had a tremendously chilling effect on commercial real estate here in the Los Angeles area and has not lived up to the promises that were made about raising money to fund homeless programs. What's the latest on the ULA challenge here now?
Well, this is moving to the appeals courts. In the lower court, the lawsuit by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association was rejected, but we still think that we have a very strong case on appeal because this is a tax that violates the California Constitution. When Prop 13 passed in 1978, one of the things that was in it was a provision to prevent the legislature, the city councils, from essentially creating a different tax by a different name on the same people for the same thing. So instead of going around it, there are specific prohibitions in Prop 13 on certain taxes. One of them is a real estate transfer tax. And although the courts have eroded that protection a little bit, Measure ULA still violates it. So that is going to go to the appeals court in California, and we think it will be thrown out. And if it isn't thrown out in the courts, then the Taxpayer Protection Act, interestingly, might cause it to be put back on the ballot. If the Taxpayer Protection Act passes, it requires these citizen initiative taxes that did not get a two-thirds vote to go back on the ballot and get a two-thirds vote. Measure ULA is one of 9 taxes statewide that fall into that category. So it might be rejected by the voters within 1 year after the Taxpayer Protection Act passes. It would have to go on the ballot. So it would be 1 more year of it, and then taxpayers could get rid of it themselves.
That is very interesting, and thanks for explaining all that for us. Anything else on the horizon with these often confusing initiatives on the ballot? Anything else that's on your radar screen that could potentially impact taxpayers here in California?
Absolutely. Here in Los Angeles, we just heard the State of the City address by the mayor, and she is urging the city council to approve these salary increases, new contracts for city workers, which will cost $1 billion extra on the city budget by 2028. Just a huge salary increase. And the city administrative officer says that the city is going to have to consider tax increases to pay for that, which is rather shocking that they're voting for huge pay increases and then they're going to talk about tax increases to cover it. That doesn't seem right. So I would watch that. If you're a voter in the city of Los Angeles, watch very closely to see if the city council starts to talk about what they called revenue enhancement opportunities. That translates to tax increase. Watch out for that.
Absolutely. Remember, former Mayor Richard Reardon used to come on this program, and already years ago, based on what he saw with the city budget and all the pension obligations and all that, he was advocating that the city of Los Angeles file for bankruptcy sooner rather than later, given all of these obligations here. What is I know you keep a close watch on all of it as a taxpayer watchdog. How is the city's financial condition here at the moment?
Oh, it's terrible. It's underwater. It's looking at a $400 million deficit next year, and I think that's before the salary increases that they're just about to approve. So it's really in the hole. And now we have this new requirement for bus lanes and bike lanes, which is estimated to cost $300 million a year. It's all really very concerning. They want to spend a lot of money on public transportation and other amenities to get ready for the Olympics. I don't know where the money for that comes from. I don't know where the money for the pay raises comes from. Voters should really be very concerned about it. Bankruptcy is an interesting thought because when you have bankruptcy, you can get out of all of your contracts, including your collective bargaining contracts, and renegotiate. And so that's you want to talk about a carrot and a stick approach. There it is.
Very interesting. This is something, again, former Mayor Richard J. Reardon, who passed away last year, had mentioned on a number of occasions in recent years as an answer to what's happening at L.A. City Hall. And now, of course, a lot of attention focused on government spending on homeless programs. Tell us what some of the big takeaways for you have been in that recent court hearing and what we've been hearing about that.
That is very interesting also. Judge David Carter has ordered an audit of homelessness spending going back to March of 2020, and that covers hundreds of millions of dollars, and no one knows where it went or what kind of outcomes were secured from this spending or what the long-term result has been. I think we can all see that it hasn't been very good. So he has ordered an audit to see how much they spent, where it went, who is tracking the outcomes, where's the data. Of course, we know there is no data, so this we kind of already know the outcome of the audit before they do it, but they're going to do it. And I believe the controller, Kenneth Mejia, is also going to do a separate audit of the mayor's Inside Safe program to see where all the money has gone, because if the outcomes aren't there.
And that, of course, is government money being spent. At this point, billions of dollars are spent on that issue with, of course, the results you see on the streets here at the moment. Susan, thank you very much for coming to the line on all of this today. Susan SHELLEY, columnist for the Southern California News Group, which includes the LA Daily News and the Orange County Register, host of the Howard Jarvis Radio Show, heard Friday nights right here on 790 KBC. Thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Right out to the freeways now, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Homelessness in Los Angeles. The big issue here, and how can you seriously help the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles? That'll be in focus this weekend when the Angels of Hope TV special airs this Saturday night at 6:30 on CBS 2. Let's get an update now on homelessness in Los Angeles and how you can help. Joining us live now, Richard NEWCOMB, Vice President of Philanthropy and Social Enterprise at the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles. Richard, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Thrilled to be on with you, Frank. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. And let's start out by saying that you gave a great update to the business community at the Beverly Hills Rotary Club this week and want to reach a broader audience. Tell us what we need to know at this point.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity. Sit with Mayor Gold and to visit with you and others there at the Rotary Club. It was really well received. People are passionate about the state of homelessness here. Why are things not getting better? And we're really grateful to hear about our great work and innovative and efficient things that we're doing at Union Rescue Mission.
Amazing stories from Skid Row. I have the honor of co-hosting that program on 790 KBC, which airs on Saturday mornings here at 8 o'clock on 790 KBC, and those are amazing stories. Thanks to the great work there, Richard NEWCOMB. Tell us about how Union Rescue Mission is making a difference there on Skid Row.
Well, we're the oldest mission in Los Angeles, Frank. Been here 133 years. We have 3 locations, right downtown in Skid Row, the most dangerous neighborhood in America, per Forbes magazine. We also have our Hope Gardens Family Center. We've had that for 17 years. It's on 71 acres out in Sylmar for single moms with kids and senior ladies. And we recently raised $40 million efficiently to build a family center called Angelus House in South LA, 132nd and Avalon Boulevard, that just celebrated its 2-year anniversary, and in that window in time, we welcomed in 532 children and 369 adults, 892 total individuals in a 2-year period that came in for 6 months to a year, that many were sleeping in their cars. And so we're doing great work here at URM. We get a 100 rating from Charity Navigator. You can't do better than that in efficiency. And so people can give and support us with confidence. And 85 cents of every dollar donated to URM goes to life-changing programs.
And I should remind our audience, the late, great Scott Minor, the giant in the financial world and the biggest supporter there at URM, came on this show many times over the years and passionately supported the Union Rescue Mission, reminding us that he was an investor who put money where he saw money be utilized in the best possible way and the best possible return. He did a lot of analysis, he told us, and said the Union Rescue Mission is by far the most efficient investment you can make in the homeless effort. You have the big fundraiser this weekend. Richard, tell us about that.
We do, and this thing has grown immensely thanks to Mr. Minard. Scott was a blessed friend of our organization, and he would match $250,000 in the ballroom when it was a ballroom gala back in 2019 anonymously. And then when the pandemic hit 5 days before the event in 2020, and it was canceled, we had to scramble. So we said, how do we get on television, you know? So we bought an hour on KCAL 9 in 2020, and Scott made a pre-recorded message. Everybody was afraid. They were stuck at home. And Scott said, I'll match up to $1 million tonight. And our $800,000, $900,000 annual ballroom gala with 500 people went out to $80,000 that year and raised $1.8 million. And then the next year, Scott said, I will match every dollar tonight. And it raised $3 million. Was nominated for an Emmy Award in 2021. We hope we might win one for last year's version. That we'll have nominations in May come out. And anyway, Scott helped us build this and grow this, and so this year we're shooting for $4 million. There's actually with sponsorships already and matching gifts from the Minard estate and a couple of angel donors that we have who are anonymous. We are at about $3.3 million right now. We're trying to raise $700,000 in the next 3 days. And we hope people will tune in and support us. Shop our auction online. You can go to helpurm.org. We have 370 amazing items there for purchase, and any purchase there will be matched by a cash donation equal to that value. So we'd love for people to rally around us, support us, and help us do this efficient and challenging work here in Los Angeles on the front of homelessness.
So important. On the air live with Richard Newcomb, Vice President of Philanthropy at the Union Rescue Mission. Again, the Angels of Hope TV special on CBS 2 is coming up this Saturday night from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. It is a wonderful show hosted by Joel McHale and Natalie Morales again this year. And congratulations on the tremendous success of that TV special. And hopefully it'll be even more successful this year as far as donations and sponsorships and great silent auction, too. Tell us about some of the big supporters there.
Well, we have Angela Bassett, has been a big fan of ours for a long time, and her husband, Courtney Vance. They will be part of the show in a significant way. My beloved former CEO, who has moved on to Iowa for other causes and to be closer to his family, Andy Bales. He retired from URM back in December, and so we've had a great time here, and lots of celebrity shout-outs from a lot of different names that I can't mention. You have to tune in and see some musical performances as well. One, a very significant name in that front. So we hope folks will tune in and be a part of that and check it all out.
That's great, Richard. And so the online auction, is that active now? Are people able to participate in the silent auction already? And, of course, make donations and support Union Rescue Mission already?
Yes, sir. You can go to helpurm.org, helpurm.org, and that site will be the landing page. If somebody wanted to make a donation, they could make it there. And then there's a link to the auction, and there's, like I said, at least 370 items from wining and dining and gift cards for restaurants all over, some of the most renowned names like Spago, Shinhwa on Main Street, Fleming Steakhouse. It goes on and on. Lots of trips and exciting adventures. One of them is something you helped us acquire from the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills that also comes with a massage for two, dinner for two, and a Bentley for 2 days for a Beverly Hills experience. We have lots of hotel adventures, lots of jewelry, handbags, some great art that'll it's amazing some of the names we have there from Matisse, etc. It's really, really cool items. So we hope
Terrific. Richard, thank you very much for that comprehensive update and certainly reflective of the business community's support for the Union Rescue Mission here in Los Angeles. Richard Newcomb, Vice President of Philanthropy at the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, live with us here this afternoon on Mottek On Money. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz, and tune in again tomorrow at 4 for Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Former Navy SEAL Sean Ryan shares real stories from real people from all walks of life on The Sean Ryan Show. Comedian John Christ.
How long have you been in Nashville? Let's see, 2018 is when I moved here. I lived in an apartment. I didn't know anything about it. I lived in L.A.
You were living in L.A.? How was that?
Yeah. Well, let's see, good for my career. Sent me to rehab, though, so that's pretty much the sum of it.
The Sean Ryan Show on YouTube or wherever you listen.